All right, guys, here's the month ahead report for the Taurus new moon cycle, month number 2 of the current eclipse cycle that we're in. And this is going to run from May 19th through to June 18th. Now, I always like to do a little bit of recap of the eclipses because I follow them so strictly. I think they provide us a lot of information and a lot of guiding light, or they help us stay focused if we keep remembering the overarching theme that they were bringing in as we go through each of these moon cycles. And I will start off with the Sabian symbol once again for that Aries new moon solar eclipse that happened on April 20th at 29 degrees of Aries, the moon cycle that we just completed. Which is all about focalization, the realization of natural boundaries. Again, very much as it relates to this pioneering of radical new ways forward, knowing our limitations and being able to go beyond them. And that Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse at 14 degrees of Scorpio, it came with a Sabian symbol, early steps in the development of a mind seeking to be attuned to a higher level of human evolution, a keyword of future-oriented growth. It was really calling us to strip away what disempowers, to really get into that North Node in Taurus, become more self-reliant, stay focused on our own individual journeys, get out of those disempowering mindsets where we're manipulating, competing, trying to control situations, and most importantly, not trusting the universe and where it's guiding us, learning to trust our instincts. And I do want to make note that that was the last eclipse in the Taurus Scorpio dynamic or axes. And so this is the last eclipse cycle from here till October with these themes. And we're going to be transitioning to the Aries Libra axis next, and halfway through this eclipse cycle. So we're going to be really seeing a magnification of all the lessons that we have been working on over the last 2.5 years with Taurus and Scorpio, really learning the difference between power versus force, learning how to become more self-reliant, how to get out of disentangling toxic behaviors that keep us fixated on reality and unable to then manifest new ones. So anyway, so that was the Sabian symbols for the last eclipses that came through, and we just completed month number 1, which contained those 2 eclipses, and now we're entering into month number 2. Keep in mind, the overarching theme of pioneering a radical new way forward is still very much with us, except now we're focusing on Taurus-related themes. This is about sense of self-worth, our resources, our assets. What are we doing with our relationships and money dynamics, and how can we make them how can we evolve them into greater states of integrity? And so this theme, as I said back at the eclipse review, all about expanding into new asset classes, or you could say a new sense of self-worth. We will have a Sagittarius full moon on June 3rd, which is not the direct opposite sign of Taurus. Again, there's a destabilizing element when we have a new moon and a full moon not in the exact opposite signs. This is going to have us shifting our belief systems, what is possible, stepping into new horizons with this eclipse cycle, with this moon cycle that we have. All right, and of course, the themes are still very much with us and still applying as it relates to what this eclipse cycle is really teaching us. We can't forget the higher intention of all of this stuff, and that is really to get us into higher states of consciousness. And part of the themes that I saw when I was looking at the last set of eclipses, really all about, again, power versus force dynamics. How do we deal with paradigm shifts? How do we deal with change? Are we doing it from fear? Are we doing it from empowered states? How do we deal with limitations within ourselves? Do we face those limitations and again use inner states of power and self-sovereignty to overcome them, to face those fears, or do we double down on using others and getting into panic, etc.? Also, managing that's managing kind of overlaps with managing fear. Again, really needing to go within. The call has been increasingly go within, really find that inner state of power within. And that might mean upping our game when it comes to daily practices that keep us centered on this spiritual journey, this evolutionary journey. Regardless of what's playing out outside. And also, because we're in the Taurus-Scorpio axis still, how we engage with others. How can we create more empowered bonding that expands both parties rather than limits or has us contracting or trying to control, compete, manipulate, have hidden agendas, hold resentments. So we're really learning how to move from unconscious expressions as it relates to those themes towards conscious ones. All right, so let's get into the Taurus new moon cycle. Now, I'm not going to get into the specifics of that. That's on the full axis group, but what I will do here is give an overarching understanding of the month ahead and what could be coming through. And for those on the membership group, I always like to do this month ahead report just to give us a snapshot of everything coming through over the next month and just kind of have that fresh in our minds, something that we can keep in mind as we go through each of the days and weeks of this moon cycle. So the theme is about expanding asset classes and a sense of self-worth. And we are going to be pioneering forward with a new plan, the one that we harvested or are coming into harvest with as we finish up this Aries new moon cycle. And now it's about building on that and building a new sense of self-worth from that. There are major opportunities coming up when it comes to expanding what we have. That can come as money or tangibles. Relationship dynamics are as well, but all to do with our sense of self-worth, because as within, so without. So when we up our intrinsic sense of self-worth, the realities around us have no other choice but to reflect that back to us. So it's about focusing on the inner world, and that really will be reflected back on the outer world, not the other way around. There is certainly a pressure with Venus in a semi-square, a tight semi-square with the new moon and the sun all month to build security and relationship and money dynamics. It's kind of like we're in this constant theme of change and having to deal with change. It's not, there's no settling. We have to keep evolving. And that's what I did say at the time of the eclipse. All right, so shadow work, some of the shadow work that we can be looking at. Well, Mars is in opposition to Pluto, squaring Jupiter. And so a lot of the themes that we've been working on, it's almost like we're having final tests of everything we've learned about over these last 2 years about power versus force, and getting out of entangling situations. And so the shadow work would be with that Mars opposing Pluto, having to really pay attention to any underlying unresolved issues when it comes to a sense of self-worth that has us competing, manipulating, carrying hidden agendas, holding resentment, wanting revenge, not being able to deal with change on our own, not having inner states of self-sovereignty with Mars in Cancer, where we're becoming codependent, and we're not believing in ourselves, so we're needing to cling on to others for that, or gauge our sense of progress based on other people. And also, because this is a Taurus moon cycle, this is about having patience, learning how to take things slow and steady, using our time and resources responsibly and with intent, as we go through this moon cycle. So too is this about maintaining boundaries, proper boundaries within ourselves in regards to our values, as well as honoring the boundaries of others. That's a big Taurus and Scorpio theme. And of course, we have this new moon is in Taurus. So again, all these points are very important to pay attention to as we navigate through this moon cycle, and we will undoubtedly, as we do through any moon cycle, feel the dips, and we'll need to be mindful of ourselves and make sure we're not operating from these lower states of consciousness, making sure that we can stop and take periodic breaks, reset ourselves so that we are moving forward from a greater sense of self-worth. I mean, this whole moon cycle is about expanding and building upon a new sense of self-worth. We're pioneering a radical new way forward as it relates to that as well. So it's something we definitely want to be mindful of. All right, and I do want to say we do need to keep in mind a couple of things. As we navigate this moon cycle, we do have the remainder of the Mercury retrograde, the post-shadow phase. Oftentimes this is overlooked. In more mainstream social medias, they will just talk about the retrograde. But for me, the pre-shadow is probably the most important. And yes, certainly we are retracing steps in the retrograde, but then we've already made the mistakes. And so during the retrograde, we're kind of making some course corrections or coming into a renewed sense of perspective. Well, in the post-shadow phase, it's like we have a final exam of what we have learned. We go through the transits once again, and once again we can trip ourselves up because Mercury is passing through those transits once again that it did during the pre-shadow. And so it's like the universe is testing us to see, have we learned about taking things slowly, paying attention to our surroundings, not going too fast, using our instincts when it comes to boundaries, values, and what is of integrity and what is not. Usually we see that there's tons of signs and synchronicities, but it's about taking the time to really pay attention to those things. And so we will be tested once again, so definitely something that we might want to spend some time reflecting on. If we had a lot of course corrections during the retrograde from April 20th to May 16th, pretty much the last moon cycle, what did we miss during the pre-shadow? How could we have done it differently? I will be on the Telegram space in my membership group with reminders as we go through these final tests. So again, very important to keep in mind. We also have the next new moon, the Gemini new moon, from the moon cycle from June 18th through July 19th. And normally I don't talk about the next moon cycle to come, except that this Gemini new moon cycle that's coming up after this moon cycle is pretty gnarly. It is a Gemini new moon square Neptune, a lot of disorientation, a lot of miscommunication that could be going on, a lot of sleights of hand. And then we also have a Venus going into pre-shadow pretty much at the time of the Gemini new moon. And as you know, just as with the Mercury retrograde, the pre-shadow is the most important part. That's where we tend to make the most mistakes. And it's a Venus in Leo pre-shadow. It will be going retrograde over those Venus, those degrees in Leo that Venus is going through from June 18th through July 19th. So when it comes to this moon cycle, it's so important that we lay the foundation for ourselves, really work on our sense of self-worth, because it's going to put us in a better position for that next Gemini new moon cycle. Really making sure that we are doing things of integrity and attracting relationship and money dynamics in kind. So super, super critical. Again, the next Gemini new moon cycle is going to be a big one, and we can make a lot of mistakes. And with Venus in Leo, we can do so with a false sense of confidence. Again, very important, this Taurus new moon cycle. All right, so with that, I'm going to go to this breakdown of monthly transits that I offer up on the membership for all of the plans, and go through some specifics week by week of what we are looking at and what are the kind of themes for each week as we expand our sense of self-worth. And do take note of that visual towards the right. That is an analogy of how a moon cycle works, where seeds are planted at the time of a new moon, new situations start to come about, and then at the first quarter moon in that week, we're usually nurturing something. We're doing the shadow work to be able to have those seeds sprout, and those sprouts start to come through at the time of the full moon, which in this case will be around June 3rd, and then in the last quarter moon, it's the full harvest of that new sense of self-worth. So going week by week, we have the Taurus new moon, and that week will run from May 19th through the 27th, and the theme for that is a call to expand our sense of empowered self-worth. Remember, this is about self-worth coming from states of power, not force, where we're competing with past versions of ourselves, not others, or trying to cling on to others, where we're really focused on our own sense of journey, remembering that is the as within, so without. We want to build a solid sense of self-worth within that then is reflected externally. So in that first week, quite a lot going on. We have Mars opposing Pluto, the Sun trining Pluto, Sun sextiling Mars, Mars squared Jupiter, a lot of surges of energy, desire, ambition, and certainly it's going to really, it's kind of like driving a Ferrari, a high-powered engine car. And so we really want to make sure that we are operating from higher states of consciousness, again, power, not force, because we can easily trip ourselves up. And remember, we are working on a solid, to expand our sense of self-worth. So what can usually tend to happen in the first week, remember, situations seeding themselves, is that we find ourselves lacking in self-worth. And that, I think, will be coming through in the latter half of the week from May 25th through the 27th, when we start to have the Sun semi-squaring Chiron, Venus squaring Chiron, some tensions in situations that are calling us to make some changes. And also to ourselves and our intrinsic sense of self-worth. There seems to be a redirection with Mars squaring the nodes, and very much related to relationship and money dynamics that could be bringing up some painful realizations. Maybe we're not in alignment with certain people or whatnot, but really the work has to be done within in order to have that reflect back externally from the outside. So moving on to week number 2, the week of the first quarter moon from May 27th through the June 3rd. That first quarter moon is going to be in the sign of Virgo, so it's all about reorganizing ourselves, and I'm going to call it the week of clearing fixations, because it really starts off with Venus square Saturn. We have to make a change in the way that we relate with other people and situations. What are our values? What are our priorities? What's disempowering us? The Sun squaring Saturn calls us to step into a renewed sense of discipline. It can be heavy if we're not willing to make take some responsibility and have some discipline. Mercury semi-square Neptune can bring about some confusing situations, and that Mercury semi-square Neptune is very much related or tied to the post-shadow phase of the Mercury retrograde. We're going to be learning lessons that we did during the pre-shadow, or we're going to have final tests from the pre-shadow to the retrograde. So there's a test there. Then we also have that week Mars coming into a quincunx with Saturn, and Jupiter conjuncting the North Node. That's quite big. Again, we're going to have to make some redirections or some shifts in the way that we're going about things. But that coming at the time that Jupiter conjuncts the North Node. Now, I made mention of this on a story in Instagram. I've talked about it in the Telegram space on the membership group. Jupiter conjunct the North Node. I know for a fact that so many social media astrologers out there are saying, oh, this is going to be a great time because Jupiter's moving into Taurus. Everybody's about to make money and come up and yada, yada, you. The thing is that Jupiter magnifies things. And if we're in states of integrity, yes, this can magnify things for the better. But if we're not in integrity and we're holding on to shadow sides, if we're fixated on something, if we haven't learned something, it can also magnify those situations where we need to do a little extra work. So it is coming in the week of the first quarter moon, always the more challenging week of the moon cycle. And so we want to be very cognizant of whatever comes up around that time. It's going to be magnifying what is not in alignment, what is not of integrity, what is disempowering, and in the end, to be able to put us in the right path towards more self-reliance, towards trusting the universe and where it's guiding us. But there does seem to be some shifts that we need to make. And again, I'm calling it the week of clearing fixations. So we're going to have to be releasing something as it relates to fixations or things that disempower and block stepping into a greater sense of self-worth. Now moving into week number 3, the week of the full moon. This is when the breakthroughs come, the harvests start to really sprout. The full harvest don't come till the final week. So this is breakthroughs into new splendors. And why am I calling that? Well, Sagittarius is always about stepping into new horizons. There is going to be a change maybe of beliefs, of change of paradigms, if you will. And with Mercury conjuncting Uranus, there's a lot of sudden, unexpected developments that come in, ideas, renewed understandings and perspectives. At the same time that Venus comes into an opposition with Pluto, where Mars is at the time of the new moon. So the work that we do over the first 2 weeks really starts to shift our relationship and money dynamics in a pretty big way. And that's why I'm calling it breakthroughs into new splendors, and I'm hoping that we're doing the work over the first 2 weeks to be able to step into those new splendors. Venus opposing Pluto can bring about, if we're doubling down on those toxic behaviors, a lot of a lot of codependencies and manipulations to be magnified. So we do want to pay attention to that. But if we are doing the work, this is about really elevating our sense of empowered bonding, a big theme of this eclipse cycle, and also transforming our relationship and money dynamics and what is showing up in the tangible world for us. So the Sun also sesqui-squares Pluto that week, and Venus squares the nodes. Lots of heartfelt shifts and very much related to relationship and money dynamics and sense of self-worth. Moving on to the last week of this moon cycle from June 10th through the 18th, we have a Pisces last quarter moon. Pisces is all about dissolving boundaries, really stepping into a greater sense of perspective and a collective perspective, opening up to the unseen. There is a mystical, divine aspect to Pisces. It's also asking us to use our intuition. And the week starts off with Mars sesqui-squaring Neptune, the ruler of Pisces. So this can be some divine realignments, ones that we have to are quite subtle in nature with a sesqui-square. We have to be very attuned to what's going on to be able to tune into that. And that's why I'm saying beholding a new sense of self-worth, because in order to really behold that, you have to be paying attention. If not, there's a lot of potential for misdeeds, I'll say. All right. Then we also have Mercury moving into Gemini on that, pretty much around that time. Pluto retrograding back into Capricorn, and that's Pluto will be in Capricorn once again. Remember, Pluto just went into Aquarius on April, what was it, 23rd? March 23rd, sorry. And now it's been retrograde since last month, and it's going to now retrograde back into Capricorn. And it's going to do this once again next year, but pretty much it's going to be in Capricorn until about January of 2024. And with this Pluto retrograding back into Capricorn, there's some things that we need to tie up loose ends when it comes to a sense of self-sovereignty. So we're going to be revisiting some structural changes as it relates to that, and so it's going to be pretty big for us to go back and really, again, tie up loose ends. Venus comes into a square with Jupiter around that same time. The Sun semi-squares Jupiter as well. This is a lot of, it kind of changes when it comes to relationship dynamics, our sense of self-worth. There's an acute sense here with a semi-square to Jupiter and also a square to Jupiter with Venus. And so I kind of get the feeling, along with that Mercury quincunx the South node, that there's a perspective shift, something is shifting, and with that, new opportunities are coming through in this last week, again, that are hopefully reflecting a renewed sense of self-worth. And as we finalize this whole moon cycle up, Mercury squares off with Saturn. It's like we've got a new sense of grounded perspective, sense of discipline. Mercury is squaring Saturn in the sign of Gemini, so our perspective is shifting. And we have Mercury also sextiling Venus at the very end. And it's kind of like a new grounded sense of self-worth that's coming through. We also have Saturn going retrograde on June 17th. It will be retrograde until November 4th, and this is where we're kind of going within to restructure ourselves. So we end this moon cycle with both Pluto, which has been retrograde, but going back into Capricorn, and Saturn retrograding. And so we're really entering a period of going within to restructure, to change ourselves within. This happens every year, so it's something that we are accustomed to, but this is when we really kind of take a deep dive within ourselves. And this is all happening before that Gemini new moon that I spoke about earlier, and of course the upcoming Venus pre-shadow. So a big month, one that we really want to make use of. I know I've been seeing it out on social media platforms that, hey, the eclipses are done. That was the most intense part of the year, and now it's just about, you know, having fun and making money. I don't think that's the best way to look at this. This is a very intense eclipse cycle. We are going in. Just look at the world around you. That's all we need to do is just see that things are definitely shifting, and we really need to be paying attention to this. We really need to work on ourselves to go within and, again, elevate to higher states of consciousness where we are manifesting reality from empowered states, and making sure that we're not falling into fear, especially because things are going to be changing quite dramatically over the next coming months. And it can be changes that create a lot of fear. So the more that we do to prepare, I've been using the analogy of the three piggies. Make sure that you're building your house with bricks, not with straw or hay. Anyway, so that's what I have. For those on the membership group, the synchronicity log is now on the member dashboard, along with the monthly breakdown of transits and the moon moods log, and of course the moon alerts that alert you 2 hours prior to the moon shifting signs if you want to track that and attune yourself to the moon, and of course the eclipse journal as well. If you're watching this out on YouTube, BitChute, or Rumble, and you are interested possibly in subscribing, would like to have a little bit more guidance, do check out the description below, or you can go directly to my website. There are 3 plans that you can choose from. A $5 plan, a $12 plan, and a $25 plan. The full access, the $25 plan, has all the bells and whistles to it. You get the daily telegram, the weekly videos, as well as kind of some guidance on how to prepare for the week ahead, along with 2 weekly Zoom calls, astrology lessons, and also the archive of collective news and past months, and being able to go to past months and see what was going on. So again, if you're interested, do check out that, and wishing everyone a blessed Taurus new moon. Bye for now, guys.